For me, the ideal Saturday is when Brighton win and Palace lose.
I hope we don't lose to them. Seriously, I hope we don't lose.
When we get together, it's fruity.
I've been brought up to hate them. Like it's in my blood to dislike them.
I want to see them lose. I take great pleasure seeing them lose.
They're not a proper football club. They're not a proper football club.
I think it's probably just the one game of the season that you really want to win.
If you win, you've got the bragging rights for however long.
It's a different type of rivalry to most. It's deep-rooted. A lot more deep-rooted than people think.
Back in the 60s and 70s, Brighton didn't really have a rival as such.
I think Palace are they're a bit mocked in South London. They were probably looking for a proper rival, to one that they could really despise, and we popped up. I suppose we looked north, they looked south, and it was, what a beautiful marriage.
It is a bizarre rivalry. It doesn't really make sense. We're not in the same city. We're not even that close to each other.
And the size of a club, you've only got to look historically, our support, we're the same size.
We seem to go up the leagues together. We are always together.
We're like two brothers, that hate each other but love each other at the same time.
I'd rather have them than not have them, because it's good to have a pantomime villain.
The superhero needs a villain, and the villain needs a superhero. Obviously, in this instance, Palace are the superheroes. But I think we need each other to make us realise, one, how great football is, and two, how much we love our teams. They definitely changed their name from the Dolphins to the Seagulls because of Palace. Because Palace had only become the Eagles 3 or 4 years before that.
There's no Eagles in Croydon, for crying out loud.
Palace came down here and were shouting Eagles, Eagles in the pubs around Brighton, and the Brighton fans needed a response.
When you're at the games, it's almost deafening sometimes when you hear the exchange of Seagulls and Eagles, and rumour has it that they obviously changed to challenge us on that basis.
Eagles, Seagulls, it's a perfect synergy, really.
By 1977, the club ditched all the Dolphins and changed the name to the Seagulls, official nickname to the Seagulls.
It was quite a big deal, and that is because of Palace, and there's no other reason for it but that.
In a way, that was Brighton trying to be more like Palace, and that gives Palace fans another reason to hate Brighton.
I just think that, in a fight between Eagles and Seagulls, there would only ever be one winner.
It was the Mullery-Venables era, just kicked it all off.
Those two hadn't got on very well apparently as players.
And became very competitive managers. The fact that they also then went on to manage deep, bitter rivals, I think only intensified their relationship.
It's legitimate now that I hate Brighton because Venables did.
We were both getting really good crowds. We were always in the third division really, and so were they. Looking back at it, it was the second replay at Stamford Bridge in the FA Cup. The sort of tension between both clubs was starting to grow.
Brighton had a penalty and scored. And the referee, a man called Ron Chalice, who has always been known since then as Chalice of the Palace, ordered it to be retaken because he said a Brighton player had encroached into the area. And it just so happens that he'd been encroached because he was pushed into the area by a Palace player. But Brighton retook the penalty and didn't score. Palace won the game, and the Palace fans were giving Alan Mullery loads and loads of abuse. And he cracked, and he put his hand in his pocket, pulled out a change, threw it at the Palace fans and said, "You're not worth that, Palace."
This is such a great shot. It's an iconic shot because he's leaning back and he's mouthing a certain word.
That sealed his status in the Brighton legends for forevermore, really.
But at the time, I can imagine that definitely fueled Palace fans at the time to hate Brighton.
I think that's where the seeds were sown for the rivalry, but then I just think it's just over the years increased at such an alarming rate. Like now it's real, and obviously like social media brings it about again. We've gone years at a time without being able to play against one another, and it just builds up and up and up.
The Renf game is an amazing example of what football can do. Obviously two clubs like ours working together to raise a hell of a lot of money.
Robert Eaton was a Brighton fan who tragically lost his life in the Twin Towers attack in September 2001. When his friends realised what had happened, they came up with the idea of setting up a charity in his name to raise funds for children's sports clubs. It's grown to be something across the world. And so when people suggested an idea of a football match, the Crystal Palace fans who were on the Brighton fans message board said, "Well, we'll play you."
Palace fans, they didn't know this Brighton fan, this guy, but I think they felt for him and his family and Brighton fans, and they knew that it could easily have been one of their own.
Because a lot of people think, well, hang on a minute, Brighton and Palace working together.
I'm sure it gets a bit heated, but it shows that there's civility at the middle of it.
On the day itself, on the event itself, there's an element of the sort of Christmas Day truce about it.
I think it's a thing that both sets of supporters really cherish, the ones that were involved.
Hundreds of thousands of pounds have been raised in that time, and long may it continue.
As much as the rivalry is really heated, I think both sets of fans realise that there's some things that are bigger than that, the REMF being one of them, some of the work we're doing with Proud Seagulls to try and keep the rivalry away from the homophobic language that sometimes comes out from a very small minority of Palace fans.
With both Brighton and Crystal Palace, you don't support them for the glory. You support them because they're your local team.
Arguably this is a bigger game for us. It could be very damaging if we go there and lose, and this is actually a really good opportunity to go and beat a side that I think we're probably superior to.
From what's gone before to what comes next, I can't help feeling that we really ought to owe Palace a good hiding.
Having Brighton below us for all these years is perfect. You want your rivals in the division below. Some Palace fans are saying, oh, we want them to get promoted so we can beat them. No, we want them below us so we can't lose to them.
We've got so much more going for us as a place. Most tolerant city in the world, and Croydon. Talk about, chalk and cheese.
Hopefully it will make their season tail off, and it will give us a springboard to go on and do better.
There's been a lot of chat from Brighton fans. When they were getting promoted, their first thoughts were about coming to us, and we've been waiting for them for a long time.
We've had to wait, four years since the last time, so this is big.
And if we go down and Brighton stay up this season, I might just give up football, seriously.